In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create functions inside of Unity. Alright, so we're going to continue on with our example script _b, and we're going to continue on with the example that we've created. So to get started, we want to create a function. What is a function exactly? Well, a function is a set of instructions that can be executed to give you some sort of result. So we've already had some experience with functions. We've had experience with the start function. Now the start function is a function that is used by Unity, and it is called whenever a script is enabled. So if a script is enabled whenever the game begins, it goes ahead and it runs this code, and it will only do it one time. Now the update function, which we haven't really experienced yet, but we've seen it, the update function is called once per frame. So whenever your computer is running, it's running at a specific frame rate. And so what it will do is it will execute any code within the brackets every single frame. And that can be really fast, and it can be a little bit slower depending on the power of your computer. There are some other functions that we can use, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. But let's talk about creating our own custom functions. So what I want to do is I want to really streamline what I've written here so far. This is all within the start function, and that's okay, but I want to actually create a function that whenever I press the space key, it will search for one of these weapons. Okay? And so let's go ahead and go down below our void update function. We're going to hit enter one time. Actually, let's do two times. Give ourselves a little bit of space in between that. Let's say void, and we'll say weapon search. Okay. Now with a function, you need to make sure that you give it your function name, just like I've done here, and then open close parentheses. And so here what we'll do is we'll tell it what to do inside of that function. So all of those instructions belong inside of the curly brackets. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take all of this information right here. So the case statement and that variable, I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it inside of my weapon search function. So let's hit Control X to cut that, and actually let's hit Control Z one time. I actually need that curly bracket right there. Let's hit Control X, and then let's come into weapon search and hit Control V to paste that in. So now what's going to happen is whenever I hit Control S to save this and I go into Unity, watch as I hit play. You'll notice that we're not getting any message at all. So what's happening? Well, that function is not being called. Remember, the start function is called at the very beginning whenever that script is enabled. And so it calls it one time, whereas a custom function like this that we create has to be specifically called. And so how do we call a function? Well, we can actually call it, we can call it from the start function, or we can call it from the update. Let's go ahead and just call it from the start function for right now. So to call a function, we'll say weapon search. Oops, let's try that one more time. Weapon search, and then open close parentheses, end with a semicolon. This is a function call. So let's hit Control S to save it. Let's go into Unity, and we'll hit play. And now you'll see that we're getting our message again. So all of that is working. But I don't want to actually call the function from the start function itself. I want to call it based on input that I get from the player. So whenever I press a key on the keyboard, I want it to search for that weapon. So whenever the weapon is running, I want it to wait for that key to be pressed. It could be pressed at any time during the game. Putting it in the start function probably wouldn't be the best, because this is going to happen on the very first frame whenever this is enabled. And if I don't press that space key whenever this starts, this will not be called. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and put it in the update function. So I'm going to create an if statement. I'm going to say if, open close parentheses, and then inside of that I'm going to give it my condition. So what am I waiting for? What is the condition? If the player presses the space key on the keyboard, then I want it to call weapon search. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if input dot get key up. Okay, so whenever I press that key and I release it, it's going to go ahead and call weapon search. Now, what key am I looking for? I have to put in the key code. So this is going to be put into parentheses as well. So inside of these parentheses, we're going to say quotation space. Okay, so it's going to look for that key. So now what we'll do is we'll put inside parentheses here, we'll say, or we'll actually call the weapon search function. So we'll say weapon search, open close parentheses, end with a semicolon. All right, so that looks like it looks good. Let's hit Control S. We'll go into Unity. Let's check to make sure there are no errors. I don't see anything showing up here. So then we'll hit play, and you'll notice there's no message. Okay, that's great. Let's go ahead and hit the space key. Once we hit the space key, you'll notice that our weapon updates with the number, and you'll see that we didn't find anything. Oh, tough luck. Now, guess what happens now? If I continue to press the space key, that number is going to change, and it's going to tell me another message. So let's continue to press that until we find something. So it showed us that we had found a dagger. I went ahead and I pressed it again. It went to 9. Obviously, it's not going to show us, tell us that we've done anything. But actually, let's take a look at our console. You'll see that we didn't find anything 5 times, but 1 time we found the dagger. So if I continue to press the space key, you'll see here that I found the bow. And we can continue, and you'll see these numbers add up, okay, depending on how many I've found here. All right, awesome. So we can see that that is working. Now there's a little bit more that I want to do to this. I want to push it just a little bit further because the weapon search, the case statement is great. Even a case statement can get, or a switch case statement can get very, very cluttered. And so what I want to do is I actually want to streamline this a little bit more. So I'm going to create another function. And this function is actually going to be called void display message. Open close parentheses, open close curly brackets, and then we're going to tell it what we want it to do. So the message, or the display message function, is simply going to print out a message of this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say print, open close parentheses, and then inside of that we're going to do open quotations, and we're going to say you found the, and then close quotations, and then we're going to append the variable that we find in this. So we're going to say plus weapon, and actually, you know what, let's do weapon name on this. Now this is a variable that we have not created yet, but I will. Let's go ahead and hit plus on that, and then we'll say open quotations, exclamation point, close quotations, and there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and make sure that we create this variable. Let's go ahead and get rid of this print as it's no longer needed. Now instead of printing this out, what we'll do is we'll assign a variable in this. So I'm going to say weapon name. Now you'll notice that weapon name is not showing up. Why is it not showing up? Well, we haven't actually defined or initialized weapon name. So let's go ahead and do that up here. Let's go ahead and say public, and we're going to put in a string, and we'll say weapon name. And then we're just going to end with a semicolon. I'm not going to assign that anything yet. Okay? So let's go ahead and hit Control S to save that. And let's go down here and let's go ahead and start typing in what our weapon name should be. So weapon name equals sword. Okay? Now the sword, okay, what I'm assigning here, notice that it's in quotations. This is a string. It's just a string of characters. And so it just so happens to be that we've typed out these characters to be sword. All right, so that's what we're doing up here. Public string, weapon name, which is the variable name itself. It's of the type string. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of these. So I'm just going to copy this. So Control C, and then we'll paste that in, Control V. And we're going to say, all right, this is the axe. Let's do the next one. Control V. We're going to say this is the dagger. And we'll go ahead and we'll do this one as well. We're going to say this is the bow. Perfect. And then on the default, we're just going to say you didn't find anything. Okay. And so let's go ahead and hit Control S to save that. Let's go into Unity. I don't see any errors that have popped up. Let's go ahead and hit play. Again, no message showing up. Let's hit the space bar, and you'll see here that our weapon number has come up. Now you'll notice that we have this weapon name, but nothing is showing up here. That's because it doesn't have anything. It didn't assign weapon name yet. So let's continue to hit the space key until we find something. Now you'll see that it's showing up as bow, as our string, but one thing's going on here. We're not seeing our message being printed. What's happening here? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at our script. Let's go into that. We should see void display message. What happened? Well, we forgot to call our function. So we need to make sure that we're doing that. So let's go ahead and just copy that. And below weapon name, we're going to go ahead and hit Control V to display message. And let's take that, Control C. We got to make sure that we put that semicolon at the end of that. Control V. And at this one, Control V. Now let's hit Control S. Now that we're calling that after each time, oops, nope, we don't want to do that. Okay, I just about told you the wrong thing. Sorry about that. We don't want to display the message after each case. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? Why would we want to do that? Let's go ahead and actually call it right up here. So whenever we press the space key, we do the weapon search and then we display the message. So let's hit Control S to save that. Now let's go into Unity. Let's play. And then we'll come up here and we'll just continue to hit the space key. And you'll see here that it's saying, yep, you didn't find anything. And then it says, you found the, and then nothing shows up. Remember that it's going to go ahead and display the message, but if there's nothing to show for that, it's going to go ahead and just print out null in there, or nothing. So we're getting this message. So that's something that we would have to deal with. So let's take a look at our script. To quickly take care of this, what we would need to do is we would need to give a little bit of logic to our display message. So what we could say here is if weapon is less than 5, do this. So print out our message. Okay, so let's hit Control S. And then we're going to have this default message that already prints out from our case statement, and that's okay, not a big deal. Actually, you know what? Let's get rid of that. Well, no, we need to have something in there because it is default. So we'll go ahead and we'll leave that for right now. So let's hit Control S to save it. Let's go into Unity, and if I hit play again, okay, so let's hit enter, or a space key on that, and it says you didn't find anything. So now our message, display message, is now working properly. So let's go ahead and continue to hit that until we get one of our weapons. And now it's saying you found the sword because we are now with a weapon of 1. Okay, so if it's less than 5, meaning it's 1 through 4, it's going to go ahead and print out the proper message. All right, so now that we have talked about pushing our logic a little bit further with creating functions, we're going to move into our next topic. And in that next topic, we're going to talk about how to use loops.